Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to City Skylines 2, and welcome back at long last to Columbia County. I hope you're having a good one because I am so excited to be back. In today's episode, we're going to be doing three things. Thing number one is we are finally moving the landfill out into the region away from the city. Thing number two is we are finally going to be crossing one of the regional roads and building something on the other side of Blackwater. It's going to be a suburb. It's going to look great. It's going to look kind of similar to an area that I grew up in, which is a bit weird. And by kind of similar, I mean not even remotely similar, but there's some ideas in there that are kind of similar. And thing number three is we are going to be building a more central and larger bus station that is going to service Blackwater much better than the wee tiny itty bitty bus station that we have so far. So with all of that said and done, let's get to it. So there's a lot of low density residential demand in Blackwater at the moment. In fact, there is almost demand for everything in the entirety of Columbia County at the moment. And something that I think we need to do is deal with this really harsh line that we have going across here between Blackwater and the rest of the county. Now, this isn't entirely unrealistic. I've been back on Google Maps and I've been looking at the town of Independence, which is on the Willamette River in Oregon in the United States. And I have noticed that in a few places, not just Independence, but in other towns as well, this happens. This is a thing that does happen. I mean, a town eventually has to end. There will be a line quite literally in the sand somewhere, but I just don't like this one. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to start by going in here and getting rid of this surface. Now that is going to be replaced because this farm is going to have to move. And my thinking is that we're going to move that farm to where the landfill is, which means we're going to have to move the landfill to somewhere else as well. And I was kind of looking at this space out here and thinking that maybe what I should do is grab this tile and then put a landfill in this space, which would mean getting rid of this section of surface as well. But we have got a little bit of road down here that I think would be perfect for it. So that's the first thing I'd like to do is replace this road with one that has a little bit of zoning. And then I think instead of moving that landfill, what I'm going to do is just go into my services and get a new landfill. I think that's going to be a little bit easier. We certainly can't afford an incineration plant right now. So I think the landfill is kind of going to be the way to go. And then what I'd like to do is somehow, some way, go ahead and get this space filled out in a similar shape to what the surface was in here before. So very, very simply, this is not what I'm looking for. I want to grab this tool and I want to basically drag this out right up to that corner about there. I'm going to bring this one down just a little bit. And then we're going to try our best to, like I said, just get this to be more or less the same shape as what was here before. So I'm going to bring this right down to the edge of the road, bring this right over to here. And honestly, I'm kind of okay with that. I think this could come over a little bit further. And that, at least to me, seems totally fine. Now, this place is going to need some kind of power connection because it certainly doesn't have one right now. It's also going to need a water connection. So what I could do, I suppose, is just bring these pipes underneath this highway. So up to roughly this intersection, we'll bring it up to here and we'll bring it underneath this highway to right about there. This guy is going to need to go underneath the water to about there. And that should, if I've connected everything properly, which it doesn't look like I have, unfortunately. But when or if I do manage to do that, which I think I've now done, we should only need power out here, which is going to be as simple as getting some of these little pylons here. So what I think I'm going to do is very, very simply, with a little bit of anarchy, just to make sure everything behaves, bring these guys right alongside this road, bring it out to about there. And then because we're not actually generating enough electricity for two of these things, I'm going to come over and just, well, bulldoze this one because we just don't need it anymore. So we're going to clear you out and hopefully we now have enough electricity to run both of these, which it seems like we might not. This one's still complaining a little bit. I do kind of wonder if maybe it's just a bit too far away for those smaller pylons to function, but I'm willing to sort of give it a shot and give it a chance. I'm also thinking that I would get rid of this, but we are probably importing electricity right now, so we probably don't want to risk losing that electricity import since we're not generating enough ourselves just yet. Although I was able to come along here and apply the streetlights upgrade to this highway, which seems to have solved things. So what I'm going to do is, unfortunately, get rid of my little power line there. As much as I like it, we just don't need it, and I'm really not in the business of wasting all of my money today. So this is sorted. This is now gone, which is good, because the second thing we want to do is build ourselves another little farm out here. But before we do that, I want to have a look at what we need in terms of production, because currently, well, we have a massive deficit of coal and of rock. In terms of production in here, we could use a little bit of wood. We have a surplus of grain. We have a very tiny surplus of livestock and a considerable surplus of vegetables. We don't have any demand nor surplus of cotton, but we could play around with all of those. For now, I think what I'll do is just replace that vegetable farm, since that's what we have out here at the moment. So it is basically going to live straight across from that transformer. And I think what I'd like to do is bring this little farm area up to about here, and we might be a little bit limited on size on this. I mean, I can presumably use anarchy to go beyond that size, but I don't think I'm going to, just for the time being, because that might be a little bit silly. And what we'll do is just sort of wrap this thing up there. We'll bring this guy down to about here, and we'll get this to line up there as well if it wants to behave, which it does. On this side, same story. We'll bring this down and bring this guy over. And I guess we might just end up doing a whole bunch of little vegetable farms. I don't know if this one is bigger or smaller than the other. Efficiency 114%. 109%. Does this one have more or less employees? It has less, so I'm assuming smaller. But for the time being, we are finally getting rid of this little farm. And I guess we're going to get rid of the road as well, which is going to mean that I need to go in and get rid of the power lines that go out here, which is a little bit frustrating because they do come down here for that farm. And I'm noticing I've also got some hedges in there that I think I'm going to need to get rid of as well. Wait, have I just disconnected power for everything? I don't know that I have. I think we're okay. That would have been really bad. Now let's see. I don't know that I want to entirely get rid of these power lines. I think I can though, because we can just electrify the entire section of highway there. So for now, we will get rid of them, and we will just go along and make sure that there is a set of power lines underneath this entire stretch of highway, so that hopefully we're not going to be having power problems in Blackwater itself. So all of that's been electrified. That means that we do in fact have power lines underneath all of this. All I'm going to need to do is go in here and get rid of the stuff that we don't need. So these pipes can go away. And then over this way, this little stretch of power line is also going to go away. And up this way, this little stretch of power line can go away. Everything else I think is solid. If we run the simulation, we shouldn't have any power problems, especially since I think we are generating just about enough for this place. And that seems fine. The last little step to do to prepare this bit of land is going to be to go in here, and very simply, we're going to be taking out all of the, well, not all of the trees, but the trees that I put down. So these trees and those bushes and that hedge that we have in there that I think might actually be a net lane, so I might have to bulldoze that, but these trees can go away. And then when it comes to the layout of this space, I kind of want to keep it relatively simple. I'm not necessarily going to go for a whole bunch of symmetry, but we're going to go 120 meters here. We are going to go for 120 meters about here. And up this way, I don't know that we're necessarily going to be able to go 120 meters, but I'm certainly going to try and go about 120 meters. We can just about go 120 meters, which actually I'm quite happy about, because it means that I can bring this road over. I can bring this road right down alongside that farm, And even though I think there was a bit of a limit on this farm with that circle that we can see, we've got anarchy. We are not going to be constrained by the default limits of City Skylines 2. That's what anarchy's for. So basically, I'm just going to extend the farm a wee tiny bit beyond what cities might want me to do with it. And then for the rest of this space, I kind of just want to go in here and do something relatively generic, to be totally honest with you. I'm really not looking to completely min-max the space that we have in here. I do kind of want some slightly smaller buildings. So we're going to leave a little bit of an overlap here, which gives us 4, 1, and 4. So I can do some little pedestrian paths between there. That is going to be 88 meters. Of course it is. Absolutely perfect. We'll bring this guy down to, you know what? This one can come down a little bit further. We'll come down to about here. And I'm just going to try my best to I don't want to just copy the grid that we have up here. I don't want to just do a big old grid, and I do want to try and put some services in here. So we might end up doing, I don't know if I just said surfaces or services. Services is what I'm looking for. I want to put maybe a little school in here, maybe some bus stops and things like that. But I do want to make sure that we have some overlap so that we can get some slightly smaller houses and just get some walking space as well. So we'll do something like this. We can go maybe not straight across with that. In fact, maybe what we do is we don't connect that at all. We'll go 256 with this one. We can come over, let's say 88 meters and go straight up. I don't know what the gap on this one is necessarily going to be. That was not part of the plan, but it lines up perfectly. That's fine by me. We can have a little pedestrian path, connect those guys together, which I am fine with. I might bring this down just a little bit, just for the sake of it. We can have some kind of weird farmland or something in there. Or maybe this one can come down a little bit as well. And again, some weird farmland in there. I think this space can just be for farms as well. So we'll get another little farm down here that kind of loops in behind these houses. That's totally fine. And then over here, I was debating whether or not we were going to connect to the roundabout. And honestly, I don't think I'm gonna. I think we'll just put some trees in here. We'll put some trees maybe in some of this space as well. Although these could, arguably, they could be some cul-de-sacs. And that seems like kind of a fun idea, actually. So we'll do 80 meters on these. That one's 72. That's not what I'm looking for. We'll do 80 meters on these. And then maybe put some roundabouts at the end of them. I think this space may be the same thing. That might be kind of fun as well. So we'll go 80 meters. We can go and leave a little gap of 3 and do 80 meters and the same thing over here. That's going to give us a little bit of a weird intersection, but honestly, I'm not against it. Or maybe I am against it. I don't know. That does look kind of horrible. Maybe, maybe we'll just behave a little bit here and we'll just do 2 little cul-de-sacs over on this side. And now with a rough road layout done, I think what I'd like to do before I go in and zone anything is get some little public services in here. So parks, maybe some fire coverage, maybe some policing. I don't think policing is really going to be needed. I don't know if we're going to need healthcare, and we're certainly not doing a park maintenance depot in here. It's a little bit too, not industrial, but it's not really the type of service that we're looking for either. Now, in terms of putting parks in here, I'm actually not too sure what we go for. I think the large playground is a fantastic little asset, and some of these sports parks are pretty good as well. I'm kind of wondering if I could get away with something like a larger soccer field in here. I think that would be kind of fun to have in this space. It's a little on the larger side of what I'm looking for. And then the American football field is just absolutely enormous. It is kind of cool though. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't. And I'm kind of looking at this thing and thinking that I might be able to do something with it. My only concern, and this is something that I've not really tested, and I don't know if I want to waste $160,000 to try it. I don't think a little suburban American football field should have all these stands around it, which is kind of what I like about this one. There was a soccer field relatively close to my house when I was growing up that did have some stands next to it. It didn't have all that many, but it had like one big set of like basically giant stairs with a roof over it where you could go and sit. So this isn't too far off reality for what could be here. So I might go with a soccer field, and I think honestly we're going to. Now I would like to make some changes to this space. I'm kind of thinking I'm going to take this road out and I'm going to just put it back in here just a little bit shorter than it was. And I want to try and use move it to grab this building, and I want to rotate it around whatever way I can so it snaps like this, which means it's not going to be connected to the road, but that's okay because I want to see. So that technically counts. That is connected to the road, which is great. The only issue is that it does need a road in front of it for access to these spaces. Now I'm kind of wondering, this end needs road access, this end needs pedestrian access. Can I do this? So that will give us pedestrian access. And then down at this end of things, we need vehicles to be able to get there. So I wonder if it would perhaps make a little bit of sense to swap out this road for one of these little alleyways, and then maybe even just, get rid of it completely and replace it this way. So we have access for vehicles up here. And then at this end of things, what I can do is just go around the entire thing with a little pedestrian path so that people can walk the entire length of this thing. And that seems good. And then we can also connect this out, down here. We can connect it up this way. We can connect this in all sorts of ways so that people have access to the soccer field. And I think that's probably a good thing. I don't like this little connection that's going on here. I kind of want that to look a little bit better, but I think this will be good. So let's take a look and see. That does connect a little bit better. Let's do the same thing at this end as well. So it's going to connect down to about there. And over this way, I'm kind of wondering if I can get something to connect to that road, or if I can get this to look a little bit better. I'm sure that if I was to run this path directly into that road, it really wouldn't look any better. That's disappointing. Okay. We'll not worry too much about it. I'll tell you what we'll do instead. Let me go in here with some parking, because I know that my beloved tiny parking lot will fill that space really nicely. And then what I can do is bring this over and down, and that looks fine. We'll have to tidy up some surfaces. That's not a big deal. We can absolutely make that happen. In fact, I wonder, can I get another couple of tiny parking lots in there? I think that looks all right. I really do. Let me take that path out of there. Let me take that road out of there. Let me bring this road straight over to here. And now if I bring my pedestrian path down, I think it's going to look even better, which is what I'm going for. So bring that guy up to here. We have a crosswalk that we don't actually need, so we can just go and turn that off. And then with a little bit of move it, a little bit of flattening here and there, I think that's pretty solid. So let me grab move it. Let me just grab everything in this space and let me level it to this height so everything is nice and flat. Has that done anything bad? Ooh. Okay. Okay. Well, we can work with that. So looking at this soccer field, I do think there are a few things that I want to take out, and that's going to be starting with the floodlights. This is just a little neighborhood soccer field. I don't think it would have floodlights. It's not going to be hosting any major competitions. I'm also going to get rid of some of the stands, just the ones on the far sides. I think the covered ones here are totally fine, although I think, can I get rid of like individual versions of this and just keep one? I'm slightly tempted to do that because, like I said, when I was growing up, there were some stands nearby my local soccer field, and there was just one. I think I'll keep the 3 though, because I don't really have any idea what I'm going to put on that side of things. And when it comes to all the stuff sort of sitting about over here, I mean, we have got some homelessness going on. We have got some bins. I'm going to get rid of these bins, which apparently don't want to go anywhere. They're going to be staying there. That might be a homeless thing. I'm not really too sure. I don't know if this is like a garbage collection thing either. I'm assuming, given that there's a garbage truck showing up, it might be. But this is sort of okay. I mean, it being kind of open like this, not a big deal. We're going to be putting houses around it. And honestly, I think that's totally fine for our little suburban soccer field. Over on this side of things, I do like the idea of maybe just getting a large playground in here. I don't know that tennis courts are, I don't know. I don't know about you, but tennis courts to me are really, you either have them at a school, and if you have them in your neighborhood, it's a really wealthy neighborhood. Tennis courts, I don't know. I genuinely don't know if it's just a me thing, but tennis courts have always been like in movies, you know, if a house has a tennis court, it's a wealthy house. So I don't want to put tennis courts in my neighborhood. That's what I'm getting at. I don't know. I don't know if anyone else cares. I just don't think we're going to be putting tennis courts in here. Now, when it does come to parks, we do have this one, and we do have the dog park available. And I might just keep it simple, stupid, and go with a combination of a dog park and maybe a playground. I think that's maybe what we're going to do here. So I'm going to put a dog park right here. I might move it back a little bit. That might not be a terrible idea, but I'm also going to do a little alleyway because I like the idea of maybe putting the playground back here, having some parking over here, and maybe actually we could move the dog park. In fact, if we just move this all down a little bit, so get rid of the dog park, get rid of this lane, and move it to here instead, we can then go ahead and put the dog park on this side. Although if I do that, my idea for parking sort of goes out the window, which is slightly problematic. That was the whole point for me doing this, was to have parking in this road, which I guess I can still do if I put the dog park this way and the kids park on the other side. Yeah, you know what? We can still do that. We'll put the dog park here. We'll get the large playground on this side of things, and that seems fine. It kind of nicely surrounds that that little alleyway, and I'm okay with that. I think that's pretty good. It keeps them separated as well. The dogs can go chill over here. The kids can go chill over here. That seems like a good thing. We can also bring a little path out to here, and we can bring... We could just run a little path down here. I don't know if it's going to connect to the road or not. That looks terrible. Never mind. There we go. Now, this is nothing too crazy, nothing too fancy. Obviously, it is sort of just a little park space, but I think in the middle of what's going to be a relatively dense suburb, that's going to be for the best. And that kind of brings us to the point where we can start to zone this. And I'm slightly tempted to use the UK low density detached housing, even though it really makes absolutely no sense out here. But I think it might be a nice space for it, especially considering this is sort of based off of, not based off of, but the idea of a little, you know, soccer pitch in the middle of a suburb is kind of based on where I grew up. So I think that's what we're going to do. I think that's what we're going to go for. Now, I don't know how well these are going to fit in here. Apparently quite well, which is good news. I would like to bulldoze these ones because I'd like to see if I can get them to rotate a certain way. So do this and then do this. And I'm assuming we're going to get two small ones. Yeah. Let's just, we can get larger. Oh, am I about to, I'm not, I really don't want to spend forever doing this, but I think just for the sake of here, we're going to go across like this and see what we can do. That one little gap down there, not really worried about it. Up in this space, can I get this to behave? Apparently not. Okay, that's This is going to be great. This is going to be a nightmare. Let's do this and this and this, and we'll do this just the entire way across here. I'm not going to manually lay out this entire space. Absolutely not doing that. But I will, just for this space, make a point of having it look somewhat similar. I don't even know if these buildings are all going to be the same, but for now, we'll just sort of go with this and see how it goes. For the rest of it, I'm kind of content just doing, even though rotation on this is going to be a little bit weird for some of them, I'm just going to do this and this to start filling out the spaces. And up this way, kind of a similar story. We'll fill out here and here. We're going to fill out all of this space. And most of this space, I think up to about there is probably fine. And that's kind of just how we're going to go for this entire thing. So let's try for, I guess, a little gap of, or a little spacing of 4 right there. We can maybe go a little bit larger on this side. Just get some slightly bigger houses in that space. And then again, same thing down here and here. You know, I've got to say, watching this all come together, I actually don't really mind the little UK semi-detached houses in here. I say semi-detached, they're completely detached houses. I really don't mind this at all, actually. They do look a bit out of place, especially given the colors of the buildings versus everything else that we're dealing with, but it's a new development. I think we can kind of get away with that, and I think we can kind of make that work. What I'm going to do, though, just because it's me, is I'm going to grab this building and place it in here by hand, because I do want a building in that corner. I just wanted it to build a very specific way. And I'm kind of looking at this space and thinking I might do that same thing for this little space as well, because we have got some buildings, I think, that will fit in there. So this one, for example, we can have, say, right about here, and then next to it, we can grab one of these little guys, and it's going to be you going right about there. So we're kind of enclosing that space the way I want it to be enclosed. I don't think there's anything small enough to fit in these gaps up here, but I'm really not too worried about that. We can do some trees and that'll be totally fine. We've also got a bunch of gaps in here where we can do a bunch of stuff with little pedestrian paths. And what I'm going to do with this is actually align it to the backs of some of the buildings, because I think that's going to give me a little bit more room for trees in between the buildings. I think if I did the path down the middle of all this space, we wouldn't necessarily get trees in between the buildings all that nicely. So just a bunch of pedestrian paths down through there. We can have one that goes up this way as well. So take out you and run this path straight up to about there. And then people can walk straight through to the dog park, which is absolutely what we're looking for. Similar story up this way. We probably should do some crossings as well. And I think up here, I think we'll actually go for a crossing here and just go right to the edge of these buildings. If I go to here, is that going to mess with the zoning? It doesn't, which is great news. We'll go to there as well. I'm not, oh wait, no, I am going to do a little something here. We're going to go to here. I need this to snap to the sides of this building though. I need it to behave for me. So you're going to go to there, bulldoze that part so people can kind of get around. Why are you guys so small? That's better. That's what we're looking for. In fact, you know what? This little corner is really annoying me. So, oh, you guys are not going to play nicely there either. This whole space is really annoying me. I don't like it is what I don't like about it. So we're going to clear some of this out. I might regret doing that because I'm not 100% sure that it's all going to fit again, but we're going to do this and this. Bulldoze you guys. I know I said I wasn't going to place these by hand, but you know what? I'm gonna. And on this side, we're going to do exactly the same thing. It does give us a bit of a gap there, but I can play around with some trees. And on this side, that is also going to leave us a little bit of a gap. So I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll leave that gap in there and we'll just do a little pedestrian path so you can walk straight over if you happen to want to. And on this side, same story. We're going to just bring a little pedestrian path across to there with a crossing. And have I missed anywhere? That's going to be the real question. We do have some weirdness going on down here. We can deal with that. I think, though, that is about everything I'm looking for. And I do genuinely think this looks okay. I also think we have spaces like this that we can go in with more parks. This time we can go in with a small playground, which I think is totally fine to do. I think a little playground here seems like a great idea. That should keep everybody happy. And I'm also thinking a little playground in here, or even another dog park, or I don't know, tiny city park. I think a playground is probably going to be the way to go. Might be a bit close to the other, but I don't think that's the end of the world. I think we can make that work. So before we start going too much crazier with trees and details, I do want to look at getting rid of this transformer station and getting some more farms around this space, because that is something that I said we were going to do. So we're just going to bulldoze this and we're just going to see what happens. I don't know if the city is going to be happy about it. I really have no idea, but yeah, so we're having some problems just at the moment, which is because we are producing just under what we need. So what I'm gonna do is go into services, go to electricity. I'm gonna bump the budget to 130%, which I think we can afford. And that does seem to have sorted our power problems just about. Our consumption is gonna continue to grow though. So I think we're just going to crank that to 150%, and we're going to take a look and see how we're doing now. Our production is 28.2, consumption is 27. So we are 100% going to need to do something about that lack of a outside connection for power. Although in saying that, I mean, I think we are bringing it on this side, although maybe it needs to step down into some kind of substation. I'm not 100% sure. Regardless, what I would like to do here is sort of keep this little dirt road, but I want to go kind of sharply at an angle here. So we're going to just go in with a little dirt road, and I want to get my guidelines. I want to go from about here, and I kind of just want to go roughly that direction. It's going to be a little bit sharp, but that's totally fine. This little dirt road really doesn't need to be all that perfect. It doesn't need to conform to whatever guidelines we got going on here. I just want it to have some little curves to it. So a little something like that. And we're going to, you know what, actually, I think we are going to have this line up in a couple of places. So we're going to have it go, I guess, straight across here is kind of what we're going to be going for. So we'll turn off our guidelines. It is going that way. It doesn't necessarily go in line with the map tiles, but that's okay. We can make that work. We'll bring it over to about here. We're going to give it a bit of a random complex curve, but I think the way we'll do that actually is we'll go to here. We'll go to here. We'll go 176 meters and do this. We'll take out that whole middle part, and we'll extend it across even further. And this will be a little complex curve that we can play around with. So the distance between these guys was what? 56? That's fine. We'll go out to roughly the middle. We'll go up by about 56. In fact, I want to go just one further there, up by 56 and over to there. So we get a nice little complex curve. Again, going to be putting farms and a whole bunch of this, which is totally the plan. This road is then going to continue across again in a bit of a straight line. I think we go ahead and get a bit of an angle going with it just for some fun, because apparently that's that's my definition of fun. And with that done, the last thing I want to do before we start putting some farms down is start going around all of my zoning with some paths. And the reason I'm doing this is because I can use these paths as a bit of a guideline for where my farms are going to be going. So we're going to come down like this and come straight over to about here. And I'm basically being very particular with where my the edges of the farms are going to be. So for this space, for example, I could sort of cut in here if I wanted to, which I'm slightly tempted to do. I kind of like the idea of having it like this, so it is going to be very sort of straight edges in a few places. And then in here, we can have some fun with a bit of an angle or something like that. So we'll go and do this, I suppose. And then for this corner, it's kind of going to go back to being a bit of a straight edge, which is totally fine. So this guy is going to need to run up to about there and over. And then this guy is going to need to go to right about there. So we'll have some curves here and there. We'll have some sharp edges and stuff like that, which again, totally fine. Oh, and there we go. We have ourselves a finished suburb, and honestly, I'm really pleased with how this turned out. Now, to be clear, not everything you're looking at is actually farmland. I did come down here and add the surface back to this space because I felt like building farms down here and then using anarchy to continue them down into the region that I don't own. I felt like that would be cheating, and it kind of is cheating, so I decided not to do that. I've also realized that I totally forgot to get rid of these trees over here, so very quickly, let's just pull all of these guys out of here because they shouldn't necessarily be on that farmland. And then we'll just go ahead and get ourselves a little bit of something along here, which I'm realizing I'm just placing oak trees, which is not what I want to do. I want to use my little tree brush here and just fill in a whole bunch of this space as much as I possibly can with some trees, and then just very carefully take some of them off of the farmland. That's probably fine as it is, but this, I like this. I think this is pretty good, and I think I'm probably just going to consider this entire thing one district, which might be a little bit odd. It's maybe a little bit larger than some of the districts that we have around here, but I'm sort of okay with that. I think it's just one big neighborhood. It shouldn't be too bad. It's all low density housing, so it should be totally fine to have this thing just as a single district. Now, what we will try and do is get it to be a very neat district, because as we know, a neat district is a happy district. And so the happy district of Autumn Peak now exists. There are 373 households, room for 376, and we have some policies we could put here. We could ban combustion engines. We could make them aware about their energy consumption, which means citizens are advised to pay attention to the use of electronic devices. Electricity consumption is reduced by 5%. That actually seems like a really good idea. We don't necessarily need this to be a gated community. We probably don't need a heavy traffic ban. We probably could encourage them to recycle, which is going to reduce their free time, but I'm sure they will manage. Roadside parking, I'm not too worried about. And speed bumps, I think we're going to do that as well. We're going to have speed bumps. It is a neighborhood. We have got parks in here. We have got a soccer field over here. It seems like having a little bit more of a safety forward mindset would be a good idea for Autumn Peak, which, by the way, it is going to need a name. I don't want it to be called Autumn Peak, so let me know what you think this space should be called in the comments below. And while you're down there, if you're enjoying the video, do feel free to leave a like on it. And if you're new around here, I mean, you're on YouTube, you know what to do. All right, so with Autumn Peak now more or less done, I want to bring some buses out here. And to do that, I think we need to improve our bus setup, because as it stands, our main bus station is this small bus station right here in sort of the middle of everything. And I mean, it's doing okay, but it does have 4 bus lines connected to it. It has 25 passengers waiting. I mean, it's doing okay. The bus lines are by no means super busy. This one has 16% usage. We could probably bring the number of vehicles down on that one a little bit. We could look at you, 0% usage. What is that one? That one's going out to the industrial zone. So yeah, we could probably manage with this one little bus station in here. I think you can have fewer vehicles as well. We'll go down to 3 for you, and we'll have a look at that last one while we're here. My point being, I think we could absolutely manage with fewer bus lines and vehicles, and we could probably put another line on there. But my point is that I want to come into this space, and I'm kind of thinking we're going to put a bus depot in here. And in doing this, I came to realize something, which is that the surface that's going underneath this river, and that goes the entire length of the river, just by the way, you can see it sort of underneath all these trees out here, up here in this island. You can see it underneath my industry in quite a few places as well, which admittedly, it looks pretty good underneath the industry, but it does bother me because it's slightly in the way, and it does make my suburbs look a little bit weird because you've got these beautiful green gardens and then just this meh out here. So I'm going to get rid of that surface, which, yeah, maybe a little controversial. I should probably also get rid of this. I don't know if we actually need this anymore. This thing has been here since day one, and I'm pretty sure I've seen like 20 comments that have said, when are you getting rid of that thing? I'm kind of tempted to keep it just as a, you know, I'm going to be honest. This looked, first off, this is vile. Second off, somehow it looks kind of even more like chocolate in this game than it did in Cities Skylines 1. In Cities 1, it was almost purple, right? This looks straight up like it, like this looks like an obese German child is about to dive into it and get stuck. Anyway, it's gone now, and we're doing just fine in terms of sewage treatment. So hopefully all of this will find its way downriver at some point. Now, back to what I was talking about, I want to get a proper bus station in here, and I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to do this yet. I'm kind of about to improvise in a way that I might end up deeply regretting. I'll be honest with you, a little bit of how the sausage is made here. I usually come into these videos with the tiniest, faintest idea of what I mean, don't get me wrong. If I start a video and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing today, that's true. I usually don't. But for things like this, like when I came to build this, I could see it in my mind's eye, which reminds me, actually, there was a comment on one of the videos of this series while I was away. How did this should have been at the top of the video. I'm so sorry. I'm all over the place. There was a comment that pointed something out. Let's say little Timmy Two Toes lives here at 172 Garnet Street. Oh God, hold it together. 172 Garnet Street. And he wants to visit his friend, Hank, at number 5 Holly Street. He needs to walk, poor little Timmy has to walk all the way down here, all the way around, maybe through here and around. When what would make sense is, I'm good. I swear, I'm good. What would make sense is a bridge, basically, that does this. Oh, I'm good. I can hold it together. I swear, I'm a professional. Yeah, a bridge like this would make so much more sense. And so that's what we're going to do. There's other bridges that I want to put in here as well, but I first want to take away that little bit of railing right there. So that is a way to get from 172 Garnet over to number 5 Holly Street. But we also have spaces up here. Basically, we can minimize the amount of walking that people need to do by going through here and adding some bridges, which frankly is a brilliant idea. And I'm slightly annoyed at myself for not thinking about doing this sooner. Now, for the life of me, I cannot remember the name of the person that suggested this in the comments on one of the episodes of this series. I am so sorry. I feel terrible. That is genuinely one of the first comments I read getting back from my vacation, and I read it and I thought, man, that's brilliant. How did I miss that? So thank you so much to whoever it was that suggested doing this. It works so well. And I'm even tempted, and I think I'm going to do it in here as well. I think we're going to put a couple other bridges in this space because it just makes sense. It really does. So right about okay, let's try and get that one right. It's gonna go, hopefully, if I can get it to line up properly. Can I do it this way? There we go. So we'll go something like this, which isn't exactly perfect, but it's probably close enough. And then same story here. We're gonna go straight across like that. That one could maybe curve, but I think it's fine. And exactly the same thing just up here. We're gonna get all these beautiful little bridges that are gonna help people get across to the other side here, which is, after all, sort of the goal. If I could get this to line up, that would be great. That's not what I'm looking for. Is this gonna misbehave, or is this gonna work for me? It apparently is just gonna keep misbehaving. That's ooh, there we go. I don't know what's going on there, but I'm pretty sure I can make that work. Can I get rid of you and you? There we go. Okay, so we have some bridges. People can walk back and forth. It's a little bit busier looking than it was, but I think that's good. I think it works. Anyway, what I'm thinking I'd like to do in this space is maybe use some kind of alleyway to separate my new bus station from everything else. So I'm going to go here, and we're going to come down to about this spot, and we're going to go over to here, and we're going to go to, I'm going to say about this spot. We're going to cut right in about there, right into this other alleyway, which might be a bad idea, but we're going to give it a shot. We're going to turn on guidelines, and we are going to get this to curve around here as perfectly as we can, which is apparently trickier than I thought it would be, which is just great. Oh, there's the spot I'm looking for. So somehow, some way, I need this to line up, which it really doesn't seem to want to do, which is just great. I love getting every other line than the one that I want. Although in doing this, I've realized a major downside to these little alleyways is that technically I cannot upgrade them with bus lanes. Now I could presumably go in here and say that this is only going to be for buses, I would imagine. So if I was to go and say do this, that does give me a dedicated bus lane. Can I then get rid of you? I absolutely can. Now, do I want to do it this way?
2 hours later.
Okay, so what I can do is have a 2U road that has a tiny median and wide lanes and sidewalks, which honestly, that's fine. I think having the wider lanes kind of makes sense since it's going to be buses going through here. Although I do, I have just come to realize that having a median on this makes no sense because the buses now cannot go a certain direction. So yeah, great job. Great bit of planning on my part right there. I'm also curious if I add a bus stop to this. Yeah, it doesn't. All right, you know what? We'll come back and work on that road. It's totally fine. For now, this is what I'm looking for. Just a big old, not bus depot, bus station, which is slightly annoyingly sized. It is a little bit larger than I would hope for, but I'm thinking I can maybe play around with the river just a little bit so it kind of goes out and around this. It probably doesn't make too much sense to have the river do that. It probably would make more sense to put it down here where it's not sticking out into the river quite as much, but I'm kind of committing to this idea at this point, so that's what we're doing, basically. And I can make this work. We can bring the river sort of out and around this. We can smooth it a bit and make everything kind of interesting. But what I would like to see, and yeah, this is kind of what I was worried about, is exactly how the buses go. So the buses come in on this side, right? They come in on the left. So my thinking is that we should probably modify this street so that instead of it being this little two-way chungus that we have going on, maybe we do just make a little one-way road here. We get rid of the median and we do something like that, which is certainly smaller. It's 1.4U. We can probably bring that down to something a bit smaller again, which is 1.3. Honestly, I'm kind of okay with that. I don't mind that. It gives us a little one-way bus road to sort of go in here and do its thing. The buses come in on this side, they leave on this side. That seems fine. So I think we're just going to rename that to a 1.3U bus road. And that's just what we're going to be dealing with. Now, before we get too much further carried away with this, I do want to start looking at dealing with this terrain first. So we're just going to flatten everything sort of back like this for now. And that's essentially going to be how I'm going to have this curve out and around this thing. So we're going to have it go this way and then over like this, and we'll smooth that out so it looks a little bit better. On this side of things, I'm thinking that I might actually go in and take out some of these trees. In fact, most of these trees. And what we'll do is bring the water back a little bit so it's a little closer to or right up against this road so that we still have a slightly wider curve on the river here. I think that makes sense. And technically speaking, this entire section of land would need reinforced because rivers move faster on the outside of a bend than the inside of a bend, I think. Yeah, they do. Because the water basically, okay, a little bit of geography for you here. When a river is doing this. So this river, given a whole bunch of time, will eventually, physically, realistically speaking, would eventually connect straight across here through the middle of Blackwater. But because it's going out here, the water will try to find the path of least resistance. So given a million years, it'll cut straight through Blackwater and leave what's called, I think, an oxbow lake up here, which is essentially a horseshoe shaped lake because it won't be flowing out and around here. But when it's going around a turn like this, the water on the outside is being thrown against the banks of the river, and that's how you get erosion at the banks of a river. Yeah, that's really basic geography, to be fair. And I loved geography in school, man. I'm not gonna lie. It was like my favorite subject. I was terrified of my geography teacher, but I loved geography. I loved just learning about like volcanoes and rivers and rocks. Like it's so cool, man. And like tectonic plates as well. Oh, don't get me started about tectonic plate. I could go on. Look, I'm just saying, if I ever went to a pub quiz and they had like a geography night, I'd do pretty well. I'm like, anytime I'm watching like The Chase or Tipping Point, I'm bringing up all the UK like dinner time quiz shows right now, but anytime they come up and then geography is the topic, I'm right there, and I nail it. It's so I love geography. I really genuinely do. It's so good. I love it. So the cool thing about what I want to do here is this is going to allow me to connect over to our waterfront housing district, and it's going to let me finally come into this space and build the little park area that I've been talking about for the longest time. Now I do want to come through and smooth some of this terrain because I don't need it to be perfectly flat in here, though it's sort of gonna be. And I'm also thinking I might look into connecting up to this little intersection so that you can technically walk from here down to here or even over to here without having to go the entire way around, which is something I saw suggested in the comments a few times. Now I wonder, does that work? It doesn't look like it does. I really, not 100% sure about that one. That one might not work, but I'm gonna give it a shot is what I'm gonna try and do. So if we go for a nice sort of straight slope from there, and if we go for a nice sort of straight slope from there, it gives us a bit of messy terrain, but I think we can work with that, especially if I go and I put a key wall on the outside here and on the outside here, and then maybe some retaining walls in the middle there just to try and pull the terrain up. That actually got a little bit messier, but I'm wondering if I could be so cheeky as to go for a really, really tiny brush size here and just sort of smooth this terrain so it kind of goes level between these paths. It really doesn't look like that's going to be the option here, but I would love it to be. I would really, really love it to be. I just don't think that's going to be, happening. Although that's not that far off. And I think that's probably about as good as it's going to be. Now, my question is if any Sims are going to use these. Oh, they are. Oh, that's perfect. Okay, we can totally hide our crimes here. We can do some trees to hide the fact that they're going through those railings. That's totally fine. That is perfect. Oh, that is perfect. That is exactly what I'm looking for. Yes, it sort of cuts this little park area in half, but honestly, I don't mind that. I think that's perfect. Let's go ahead and bring some surfaces in here so that we can make this place look a little bit neater. And then I'm not 100% sure how crazy we're going to go in terms of detailing on this. I'm not 100% sure what I want to do. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's going to be trees, all right? You might be surprised to learn that in one of my City Skylines 2 videos, there will be trees. And there we go. We have ourselves a little park just in front of our welfare center. We have this beautiful pedestrian connection from all the way down here, going all the way down to our new bus station. We have an actual little plaza in here as well. People can enjoy that. People can just get around, enjoy walking along the river. And you know what I would really like to enjoy? I would really like to enjoy just fixing up this surface, because I don't know what's going on there. Oh, I do see what's going on there. Never mind. Can I just run this into the depths and have it just gradually disappear? Does that? No. Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. What is that surface even doing? Is that just underneath? That's just underneath all of that. Yeah, we can just, I know what I was going for with that surface, but it really was not working. So we're just not gonna worry too much about that. But I think this looks fine. I would be tempted to go in here with a riverbed thin surface just underneath some of these plants to see how it looks if I was to do that, and then sort of make it a little bit more ragged and jagged in a few different places. It might look kind of interesting if we do this sort of thing and kind of drag it down into the river a little bit. Does that kind of blend? It sort of does. And I could probably put some plants around that to sort of blend it a little bit further. So I think we'll go for something similar just over here. We'll kind of just give it some weird little random shapes that we can play with there. We'll go up to about there and just go straight underneath the bridge, and that'll be kind of how we hide our crimes with that one. And then up here, we'll kind of go out this way and just across the path right this way. Go for some weird shapes again and bring it right down into the water so it kind of disappears. And I think here I'm not going to worry too much about it. But for these little spots, I was actually thinking of putting some rocks across this entire thing, just to sort of, you know, protect from the river. But it was a bit much. It was definitely a little bit much, and I think it would have just overdone it. Is kind of what I'm thinking. So I decided against it. I figured we'd kind of just leave it be and just not overdo it. But I will just use a couple little plants here to kind of blend that riverbed surface, so that it kind of, you can't quite see where it ends, even though I'm kind of using plants to mark where it ends. You know what? Never mind. We're hiding our crimes. All right. That's what we're doing. That looks fine to me. I think that's a solid looking little park, a little bit overdone with the trees, but there is a lot of walkable space. That person is walking 4 dogs. Good for you. Okay. Good for them. I think what we'll do is go ahead and start looking at bringing as many bus lines into this station as we can manage. Now, that's looking like it's going to start with this guy, which I am fine with. It is going to overlap itself, which is a little bit unfortunate, but I do think it means we can maybe, well, we could get rid of this stop, but I would imagine a lot of people from this space are probably using that stop. So I kind of wonder, would it be worth bringing this guy in, something like this, and then going straight back out? I think we'll give that a shot and see how it goes. Because my other thought here is, can I by any chance get this line to connect to there? And I'm looking at it and really thinking the answer is going to be a solid no. What about this line? What is it doing? So it loops around in the industrial space. That's not bad. The red line kind of loops around in that space as well. They just go across different parts of the city. I think what we would need to do here, realistically speaking, is kind of totally rebuild our bus network. So I think what I'll do, just before we wrap things up for today, is I'm going to bring a bus line sort of down into this neighborhood. And I think that's going to be good enough for the time being. So these guys are going to have a little, let's go for North American. And it's just going to be a sign out front of this house. So a little sign right about there. And then we're going to come down, and I don't think the bus stops need to be that close together, but I'm going to put a little bus stop just down here as well. So you can kind of loops around. It is going to come down and stop on this little curvy road because there's not really anything else going on that road. And I'm going to stop on the other side as well because we're probably going to come back the way we're going through here. So we'll have a couple of bus stops, I guess right there, which means I am going to be getting rid of that wide sidewalk. And by the way, we did happen to hit another milestone. We are, in fact, a big city now, which increases our loan limit. It gives us 11 development points and 18 expansion permits. And I'm actually kind of curious, what should we start developing into next? Because we have 34 points to play with and quite a few things that we can still unlock. Trains, I actually have a big idea for trains that I'm super excited about. I just don't think we're going to be getting anywhere close to doing what I want to do with trains for a little while, unfortunately. But I'm very, very excited and have what I think is a very cool idea for some trains in the hopefully not too distant future. It might be a little while, but I'm hoping we can get there in the next couple of episodes. Anyway, what I think we'll go ahead and do here, since we have this all set up, is bring ourselves a new bus line into the space. So we're going to go from here and essentially, do I want to go down this main road? Would that be the right idea, or come down kind of around this way? I think going down the main road might be the shout, although it is going to loop back on itself. So I'll tell you what, this actually might have been better to loop around a completely different way. It might have been better to come out here, down through here and across, and then straight back. I guess I can still do that. Yeah, I guess we can probably still do that. So we'll bring the bus line down here. We're going to bring it straight over this way. We're going to bring it down. And I guess we'll just go for something relatively simple like this. I'm hoping that the bunch of pedestrian paths we have in here will be enough to keep everybody nice and happy. And I'm also looking at this and thinking that I might... Well, do I care about the buses overlapping here? I don't think I do. I think we're just going to go for something like this. They're going to overlap at this point, but that's not really the end of the world. And if people from up here don't walk to the buses, I mean, that's okay. I suppose if I wanted to, I could add a bus stop up there, but I would imagine the walking distance in Cities 2 is all right. So what I'm going to do, just before we let this run, is get this swapped out for a regular bus. We're going to go for we're going to go for 3 vehicles. And I think that'll be all right. I'm going to bring the ticket price down to $6 and we'll just see if people use it. And that's going to be good. That's our bus connection for Autumn Peak. That is our new sort of, well, it is actually a central bus station, to be fair. It's right by our welfare office. It's right by the bulk of our density in here. And it has a solid pedestrian connection to this waterfront housing space. So I think this is pretty good. I mean, yes, this is a bunch of land that isn't technically used for anything in Cities 2, but I like this as a development. I think it looks pretty solid, and I'm really, really pleased with it. And with a little bit of a color tweak to the line, we have our first bus heading down to the suburbs. There are people on board. I think there's only 5 of them. There's like 4 dogs on this bus, which is a lot, but I like it. I'm really, really pleased with it. I'm kind of keen to see what it looks like going into the suburbs here with all the UK houses. This is my first time ever doing this with a vehicle in Cities 2. And honestly, oh, wow. Oh, it's a little samey, but this does look like this looks like so many UK suburbs that I've been to. It's kind of weird. Oh man, let me slow it down a little bit. I've got it in 3 times speed. Yeah, this is weird. I'm not gonna lie. It's actually really, really weird. This looks like so many places I've actually been to. Oh, it's very, very strange, but I like it. It's good. It's what we're looking for. This was kind of the vibe that I wanted for this space. So I think with that all in mind, even though it's a bus driving on the right side of the road in a UK suburb where it should be driving on the left side of the road, with that all in mind, I think we can leave it there for today. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. Oh, look at that view in the distance. You can just see the buildings over the trees. Oh, I'm so pleased with this series. I really am. Honestly, I was about to wrap things up. One last little point. I've seen a couple of people. I've been talking about Cities 2 a little bit on social media over the last couple of weeks and on Discord and live streams, and a few people have mentioned that they really struggle with kind of keeping going with Cities 2. They've been playing a city for a while and they're kind of losing it a little bit. Do what I did. Start a new city. Go for a totally different vibe to what you went for the first time. With my first city, with the Linden series, which is still ongoing, I just threw things at the wall to see what would stick. There wasn't really any plan. There was no real design element involved until way later in the series. With this series, with Columbia County, I'm taking things way, way slower. I'm going so much slower. I'm being very deliberate with where I place things. I'm not expanding super quickly. I'm taking it nice and slow. We still have under 20,000 people in Columbia County. And we're what? This is the 13th part of the series, 12th part of the series. I don't know. Whatever part of the series it happens to be. I think it's the 12th one. So just take it slow, change it up, try a new map, try the new region packs. Obviously, like, don't get me wrong. This isn't sponsored. There's nothing in it for me. It's nothing like that. It's just that's what I did, and I have kind of fallen in love with playing Cities Skylines 2 again, just because of all the new stuff. Oh, the smokestacks in the distance there's a little bit rough, but all the new stuff and playing it differently has helped me a lot. And if it doesn't work for you, that's okay. You can turn it off, uninstall it, come back to it in 6 months, come back to it in a year. It'll always be there. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. I've seen a couple of people talking about that. Hopefully it helps you out a little bit if that's what you want to try, and let me know how it goes if you do. Anyway, that is going to do us for today. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. It has been an absolute pleasure as always. And as always, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.